My brother-in-law raised his beer at our 4th of July barbecue and told everyone my Navy career had been an office job. He said it with sauce on his shirt, a fake tactical watch on his wrist, and enough liquor in his voice to make cowards sound brave. Everyone laughed. I did not. My hip was aching from the metal screws the surgeons left inside me after the crash, and the smell of grilled meat, fireworks, and hot asphalt kept dragging me back to another kind of heat. Kandahar heat, the kind that turned dust into glass and made a cockpit feel like a coffin. Then Randy pointed at my limp and said, "Come on, Nora, America's most classified office warrior can take a joke." That was when an old man near the fence lowered his drink. His name was Earl Maddox, former SEAL Team 5. He looked at me for a long second and asked one quiet question. "What was your call sign?" I almost lied, but something in his face told me he already knew. So I said it. "Ghost Mama." The yard went silent. Earl's face changed first. Then everyone else watched a former SEAL stand up straight. Look at my brother-in-law and say, "You have no idea who you just insulted." My name is Nora Vance. For most of the people in my family, I was the tired aunt with the bad hip, the one who worked in a flight simulator building in Pensacola and left parties early when the noise got too loud. They knew I had served in the Navy. They knew I had flown. They knew I walked with a limp. That was all they wanted to know. For years, I let them. After I left active duty, I became a simulator instructor at a training facility near Pensacola. My job was to sit behind glass and watch younger pilots make mistakes that would kill them if the sky were real. Engine failure, fuel leak, fire warning, hydraulic loss, bad weather, bad judgment. I taught them that the aircraft does not care how scared you are. It only answers discipline. Most days, I went home to a small blue house near the water, took my medication, iced my hip, and talked to a yellow Labrador named Diesel until cancer took him the winter before this story begins. After Diesel died, the house became too quiet. His collar stayed beside the back door for 6 months because moving it felt like losing him twice. That was the year I stopped going to most family gatherings. But my sister, Jenna, called me before the 4th of July and asked me to come. "Please," she said, "the kids miss you." I heard the real sentence underneath. "Please come because Randy behaves better when witnesses are around." Randy Kessler was my brother-in-law. He owned a construction business that had once done well enough to buy a boat, a big truck, and the kind of confidence men mistake for character. But the market had shifted. Younger contractors were underbidding him with drones, better software, cleaner books, and less ego. Randy did not adapt. He bought tactical sunglasses. He wore shirts with flags on the sleeves. He told people he worked adjacent to special operations because one of his old subcontractors had once repaired a fence at a training range. He had never served a day, but he loved standing near veterans in photographs, especially if those veterans made him look important. Jenna's backyard smelled like charcoal, sunscreen, beer, and cut grass. American flags were stuck in every planter. Kids ran barefoot through sprinkler water while Randy stood at the grill in a bright blue Hawaiian shirt, shouting over country music. He saw me the moment I walked through the gate. "Well, look who left the classified bunker," he called. I smiled the way women smile when they have decided not to start a war in front of children. "Happy 4th, Randy." He hugged me too hard and smelled like cheap beer. "You still teaching video games to pilots?" "Emergency procedures," I said. "Right, video games with consequences?" His friends laughed. Jenna heard it from the patio and looked down at the lemonade pitcher. I knew that look. It was not agreement. It was exhaustion. I found a chair near the fence where the ground was level enough for my hip. The screws hated humidity. Every step felt like rust grinding under bone. He nodded, like I had given him treasure. Then Randy appeared behind him. "Careful, kid," he said. "Aunt Nora's stories are classified, mostly because they're boring." Caleb frowned. "Dad." Randy laughed louder than the joke deserved. "Relax. I'm proud of her. Somebody had to protect America from paperwork." The plate in my lap tilted. I steadied it before barbecue sauce hit my jeans. I could have answered. I could have told him about night sorties over Afghanistan, about heat signatures on a screen, about hearing men breathe too fast over the radio while tracers climbed toward my wings. Instead, I took a chip and said nothing. Silence had become my habit. Not peace. Habit. There is a difference. Across the yard, a man I did not recognize was watching me. He was older, broad through the shoulders, with silver hair cut close and a face that looked carved by bad weather. He wore a faded navy cap with no need to explain itself. Jenna introduced him later as Earl Maddox, a friend of Randy's business partner. "Retired Navy," she said. Earl and I shook hands. He did not squeeze too hard. People who have nothing to prove rarely do. "Ma'am," he said. "Nora," I answered. His eyes moved briefly to my limp, then away, not with pity, with recognition. I appreciated that. Randy did not. By sunset, he was louder, redder, and more dangerous. He had gathered an audience near the cooler and started talking about his new project, the Veteran Mentorship Foundation. "Finally doing something real for the veteran community," he announced. "Not just sitting in offices teaching checklists." Jenna's face went still. I looked at him. "What foundation?" He grinned. "Don't worry. You're involved. Family supports family." My stomach tightened. What does that mean? "It means your service profile helps the paperwork, makes donors comfortable. You know how it is." No, I thought, I know exactly how it is. But before I could ask more, Randy lifted his beard toward the crowd. "Let's hear it for Aunt Nora, America's most classified office warrior." Laughter scattered across the yard. Not everyone laughed. Earl did not. Randy pointed at my leg. "Come on, ghost lady, don't look so serious. That office chair must have been brutal." That was when Earl spoke. "Ghost what?" Randy waved him off. "I don't know. Some pilot nickname. She never talks about it." Earl turned to me. His voice was almost too quiet to hear. "What was your call sign?" My throat closed. For 16 years, I'd kept that name folded away like a flag that belonged to someone dead. Jenna looked confused. Randy smirked. The kids stopped chasing each other. I set my plate on the grass. "Ghost Mama," I said. Earl's face changed. I had seen that look before on men who had survived something and suddenly found the person who stood between them and the grave. He removed his cap. Not dramatically. Reverently. "Ma'am," he said. "Kandahar, November 2009. The yard went silent. Randy's smile weakened. Earl looked at him. That office job stayed over us 23 minutes after she was ordered out. One engine damaged, fuel leaking, ground fire everywhere. We heard her engine overhead and knew somebody still cared whether we lived. Nobody moved. The cicadas were louder than the people. Earl turned back to me. "We never knew your real name." I looked down at Diesel's old collar, looped around my wrist like a habit. "You were not supposed to." People think recognition feels good. She glanced back at Randy, who was standing by the grill, pretending not to care. What did Earl mean about 23 minutes? I leaned against my car and felt my hip pulse. "Kandahar," I said. "We had a team pinned down. SEALs and Marines. Their extraction bird could not get in because the fire was too heavy. I was overhead for support. You were in danger? I laughed once, without humor. I was in an aircraft with a damaged engine and a fuel leak. So, yes. Why didn't you leave? I stayed until the last man was out, I said. Jenna covered her mouth. I had not planned to say more, but once the old room opens, air gets in. I was ordered out twice. I disobeyed twice. They wrote it carefully later, so nobody had to call it that. But you saved them. Some of them. She heard the ones I did not say. The men I could not save had followed me home in quieter ways. In my hip? In my dreams. In the way fireworks made my hands cold. In the way I kept trying to earn my survival by being useful, agreeable, low maintenance, easy to ignore. Jenna reached for me, then stopped, unsure if touch would help. Behind her, Randy's voice cut through the yard. Can we not make the whole party about Nora's Top Gun moment? Something inside Jenna broke visibly. Not loud. Just a crack through the face. I got in my car and drove home before either of us said something we could not take back. The next morning, Earl Maddox called me. I did not ask how he got my number. Men like Earl have networks made of old favors and quiet loyalty. I apologize for opening that door in public, he said. You did not open it. Randy kicked it until the hinges gave. He is using your name. I closed my eyes. How do you know? Because he sent a foundation packet to a donor I know. Your photo is in it. Your service summary is in it. Declassified pieces, enough to make it look endorsed. My kitchen seemed to tilt. What photo? The one from the barbecue. You standing by the flag, cropped? I remembered Randy taking pictures with his phone. I had thought he was just drunk. That is how people like him survive. They make their violations look too stupid to be planned. Earl continued, the foundation claims you serve as a senior veteran advisor. I never agreed to that. I figured... He paused. There is more. There always is. Randy's construction company had debt. Large debt. He had created the Veteran Mentorship Foundation to attract grants, low-interest loans, and local sponsorships. The paperwork suggested veteran affiliation. My record gave the lie enough shine to pass through doors. He had not stolen money yet. Not all of it. But he had built the machine. And he had put my name on the engine. I sat at the table where Diesel used to rest his chin while I drank coffee. What do you need from me? I asked. Earl's answer came fast. Documentation, your denial, anything showing you did not consent, and patience. I almost smiled. Patience I have. No, he said. You have endurance. Patience is different. Patience waits for the right moment. Endurance just keeps bleeding quietly. I did not answer. Because he was right. Randy escalated because cowards always do when silence stops feeding them. 2 days after the barbecue, he posted a photo on social media. In it, I stood beside a flag with my cane cropped out. The caption read, "Proud to launch the Veteran Mentorship Foundation with support from decorated military leaders in our own family. Time to help warriors become winners." Warriors become winners. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then another screenshot came from Earl. A private comment Randy had made under a friend's joke. G.I. Jane Costco edition, finally useful for something. Another. If limping gets us donations, I'll push her in front of every camera in Mobile. My hands began to shake. Not with fear. With recognition. Her voice was tight, Did you see the post? Yes. I told him to take it down. Did he? No. He said you should be grateful he's making your service mean something. I looked at Diesel's collar by the door. My service already meant something. I know. No, Jenna, you know now. She was quiet. Then she whispered, "He punched the laundry room door." I stood. Are you safe? Yes, the kids are at Mom's tonight. Go there. He didn't hit me. Jenna. The cockpit was hot enough to make sweat sting my eyes. The warning lights flashed in red and amber. One engine coughed like an animal choking. Fuel streamed behind me in thin gray ribbons. Command told me to withdraw. I acknowledged. I did not comply. Below me, men were running through dust and fire. The extraction route was a geometry problem written in bullets. I put the aircraft where it should not have survived and kept it there. 23 minutes. That is not long unless you are waiting to die. Or refusing to. When the last heat signature reached the extraction point, I finally turned out. The aircraft shook so hard my teeth hurt. I landed ugly, hard, alive. People later called me brave. But bravery is not what I remember. I remember being angry that anyone expected me to leave them. I had forgotten that anger could still be useful. The Marina confrontation happened the following Friday. Randy cornered me outside a bar near the water where Jenna had asked me to meet her. She was not there yet. That told me enough. He came out wearing jeans, boots too clean to have worked, and a black polo embroidered with the Foundation logo. My old call sign was on the sleeve. Ghost Mama. Small letters. Stolen letters. You need to stop talking to people, he said. I looked at the logo. You need to remove my name. He laughed. There it is, the war goddess routine. I felt no heat in my voice. Remove it. You know what your problem is? Nora, you can't stand normal men succeeding. You flew around dropping bombs, and now you teach pretend emergencies to kids. I build things. You build debt. His face changed. Good. Truth had found a nerve. Are you recording me? He snapped. No. Bull. He stepped closer. You think Earl scares me? A washed-up seal and a tired woman with a limp? The bar door opened behind him. Earl Maddox stepped out. He had heard enough. Randy turned and forced a laugh. Perfect. Ghost Mama's bodyguard. Earl did not smile. Randy looked back at me, uglier now because he had an audience. You're a Costco G.I. Jane with a dead dog and a bad leg. That's all? For a second, the marina disappeared. The lights, the water, the smell of fried food, the music through the open door, all of it dropped away. There are insults designed to hurt you. And there are insults designed to check whether you still believe you deserve protection. I did not move. Earl did. Not toward Randy, just one step forward. That was enough. Randy's shoulders tightened. Earl said, You asked about her call sign. Biggest mistake you ever made. Randy tried to scoff, but the sound came out wrong. Earl handed me a folder. Everything we have, he said. Inside were loan forms, donor packets, screenshots, grant language, foundation documents, and posts where Randy mocked the very people he was pretending to help. At the top was a schedule. Veteran Mentorship Foundation, Launch Banquet, Holiday Inn, Mobile, Alabama. Guest of honor, Commander Nora Vance. Call sign, Ghost Mama. I looked at Earl. I was not invited. You will be... How do you know? Because men like him cannot resist displaying what they stole. The invitation came by email 2 days later. Dear Commander Vance, we would be honored by your presence as our featured veteran guest at the official launch of the Veteran Mentorship Foundation. Featured veteran guest. Not advisor now. Guest. What I should have done at the barbecue? She started crying. I'm sorry. For what? For letting him talk to you that way. For letting him talk to anyone that way. For pretending it was stress. I sat on the edge of my bed and pressed my thumb into the scar near my hip. Jenna, you have children. Start there. I took them to Mom's. Good. I'm filing for separation. The room went still. How do you feel? Like I spent 15 years doing archaeology in a graveyard, digging for the man I married. I closed my eyes. And all I found was bones. I wished I could hug her through the phone. You are not responsible for what he became. I know that in my head. The rest takes time. The Holiday Inn ballroom smelled like carpet cleaner, chicken and cream sauce, and ambition. Round tables filled the room. Local business owners, city officials, donors, veterans, and people who liked being seen near veterans sat under chandeliers that made everyone look slightly tired. A banner hung behind the podium. Veteran Mentorship Foundation. Building warriors for tomorrow. I nearly laughed at that. Randy stood near the stage in a navy suit that pulled at the buttons. Jenna was not with him. That absence seemed to rattle him more than the evidence ever could. He saw me and spread his arms. There she is! I did not hug him. He lowered his arms. Earl arrived 5 minutes later with 3 men from SEAL Team 5. They did not arrive loudly. They simply entered and changed the room's weather. One of them wore a Vietnam veteran cap and walked with a cane. Another had burn scars along his neck. The third looked young until you saw his eyes. Randy noticed them. His smile tightened. The dinner began with speeches about service from people who had mostly served themselves. Randy spoke last before introducing me. He talked about brotherhood. He talked about transition. He talked about corporate warrior reintegration pathways, a phrase so empty it could have echoed. Then he gestured toward me. And tonight, we are proud to welcome a true American hero, someone who has graciously supported our mission from the beginning, Commander Nora Vance, known in some circles as Ghost Mama. Applause rose. I walked to the podium. My hip hurt. I let it. Pain had carried me this far. It could carry me 30 more feet. Randy tried to hand me a prepared speech. I ignored it. The microphone was lower than I liked. I adjusted it slowly. Then I looked at the room. My name is Nora Vance, I said. I am a retired Navy aviator. My call sign was Ghost Mama. I did not give Randy Kessler permission to use my name, my image, my service record, or my call sign to promote this foundation. The room went silent so fast it felt physical. Randy laughed once. Nora, this is not the time. I turned slightly. Actually, Randy, timing is something pilots understand very well. A few people shifted. I clicked the remote Earl had given me. The screen behind me changed. First slide, the foundation packet with my photo. Second slide, the loan application citing veteran leadership. Third slide, a screenshot of Randy's comment. G.I. Jane Costco edition, finally useful for something. A murmur moved through the room. Randy's face flushed red. Nora, he barked. Fourth slide, if limping gets us donations, I'll push her in front of every camera in Mobile. Someone at the front table gasped. I kept my voice even. These statements were made by the founder of a veteran mentorship organization about the veteran whose record he used to secure credibility. Randy stood. This is family business. Earl rose from his chair. He did not speak at first. He did not need to. The room remembered its survival instincts. Randy stopped moving toward the laptop. Then Earl said, "You used her call sign because you thought it was decoration. For some of us, that sound meant we were going home." A man at the front table removed his cap. Others followed. I clicked again. Final slide, a letter of non-consent, my military record summary, and a referral packet prepared for the appropriate oversight offices, lenders, and donors. This foundation may have lawful work to answer for, I said. That will be handled by the proper authorities. But tonight, the truth needed to be spoken in the same room where the lie was being sold. Randy looked around for rescue. There was none. His donors would not meet his eyes. His business partner stood up and walked out. The city official at table 2 folded his program and whispered to an aide. The banquet did not explode. It collapsed. There is a difference. Explosions are quick. Collapse makes people watch what they helped build fall down. Men like Randy cannot imagine honor, so they translate it into envy. Jenna filed for separation and moved into a small rental with the kids. The first night, Caleb called me. Aunt Nora. Hey, kid. Mom says the house is quieter now. How do you feel about that? He thought for a moment. I can sleep. That sentence hurt more than anything Randy ever said. A child should not have to discover peace as if it were a new room. For years, I had mistaken my own silence for discipline. Sometimes it was only surrender wearing a better uniform. Earl came by my house the following week. He brought a wooden box. Inside was a framed patch from the men who made it out of Kandahar. Not official, not polished, just worn fabric behind glass. Ghost Mama, 23 minutes. My throat tightened. I don't know what to do with this, I said. Hang it somewhere you can see it. I survived, some didn't. His face softened, not with pity, but with the fatigue of a man who knew the same arithmetic. Surviving is not something you apologize for. I looked away. He waited. Men like Earl can wait without demanding performance. Finally, I said, it feels like debt. It feels like that until someone tells you it was also a gift. The house was quiet around us. Diesel's collar still sat near the door. I picked it up and held it. I kept trying to earn being alive. Earl nodded. Stop. Such a simple word. So difficult. That was new. When they handed me the framed certificate, Caleb whispered loudly, "That's my aunt." People smiled. It only needs to stop blocking the door. I still teach emergency procedures. I still limp when the weather changes. I still wake up some nights hearing radio static. But I no longer make myself small, so men like Randy can feel large. That is the difference. At Kandahar, I stayed in the sky for men who needed cover. At the Holiday Inn, I stood at a podium for the woman who had spent years refusing it for herself. Both were missions. Both required timing. Both required refusing the order to retreat. A few weeks later, a small envelope arrived from the training command. It was not a medal ceremony, not the kind of thing that makes headlines. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the men Earl brought to the banquet had requested my record be read properly, without Randy's name anywhere near it. Jenna came with the kids. Earl stood in the back of the room with his hands folded in front of him. No one made a show of it. No one turned my pain into advertising. They simply said what had happened, and for the first time in years, I listened without trying to disappear. Afterward, Caleb asked if Ghost Mama was a superhero name. I told him no. It was a promise, I said. A promise to who? I looked at Jenna, at Earl, at the small group of people who understood the cost of staying. To whoever needed me not to leave. People ask sometimes what Ghost Mama means. They expect a war story. I tell them it means you do not abandon people just because leaving would be easier. Then, if they are quiet enough to understand, I add the part I learned later. You are people too. You do not abandon yourself either.